Hi, and welcome back to another Street Fight Politics. Yes, it's another Street Fight Politics. And why Street Fight Politics? Well, right now, Mike Flynn's going around saying that they should just overturn the election, declare martial law, and make all of the states that Biden won do a do-over. So they're playing hardball, and we're playing hardball right back. And as always, my two co-hosts are Ed Westerfield. He's an expert of everything to do with business, and was very helpful in our Business of Cannabis show last time. And Harry Ramsbottom, he's our military expert, and boy, is that going to come in handy today. I'll tell you, there's some stuff going on. So today we want to talk about the vaccine. You know, it's Operation Warp Speed turns into Operation 1%, it looks like. Ed, do you want to go ahead with that?
Oh, you bet. Well, I'm actually feeling pretty good about patting myself on the back with this one because I predicted this was going to happen, that for all the people out there that had been, crying that the virus was a hoax, or the vaccine was dangerous, we haven't tested it, we've rushed it, that when you get something that is quickly recognized as very valuable, but also, unfortunately, at this time, very rare, it becomes very coveted. And like everything else in life, the people with a lot of money can jump the line by applying the money at the right places.
Right.
And so, you're seeing people with power, especially like, the senators like Joni Ernst, Kelly Loeffler, were some of the loudest people out there, downplaying the severity of COVID. They're the first ones getting the vaccine. And what I'm hearing from my some of my doc buddies that, and especially in the concierge medicine practices, that's where you pay a fee to have your own private doctor for a year. That if you can pay $10,000 a year to have your private doctor, then you expect that they're going to be able to pony up and get you the vaccine early. And so they're getting tons of pressure, from their clients that, hey, that's what we're paying you for. Go get the vaccine now. And, it's like I'm a frontline physician. I deal potentially with COVID patients every day. And I still have not been able to schedule my vaccination. And I should have already had it by now, but that's just the way things are working.
Well, that's my beef. I mean, it turns out, Operation Warp Speed is, the speed is warped. I mean, they have all those doses sitting at Pfizer. Did they get those out yet? I don't know.
Yeah, they've finally released them. But, again, that points to the people that Trump appointed to get this stuff done. You've got a general that was so afraid of Trump that he decides he's going to hold some back. I mean, he, in his twisted way, you could see the rationale, but this is like, if you're in a battle, you don't hold your tanks back, when the battle's raging, you send everything in. And the good news is that there is more supply coming. Moderna got their stuff out today. Pfizer's getting ready to release their second round. So, we should be able to start getting, into the general population, which is where you need it. And again, this is where you're going to see huge fights, and you're already seeing them. Like, one of the places we should absolutely vaccinate everybody first are prisons. Because when it goes in there, it's going to spread like wildfire. You can't get away from it. And that means the prison guards, everybody who works there, are going to be taking it home with them. But then you get into these arguments that, basically these right-wing arguments that, well, they deserve to be there, so why should they, get in the front of the line, in front of my 90-year-old mom. And it's an argument with a lot of emotional appeal, but I look at it that you've got to prioritize, get 90-year-old moms and the prisoners besides, because those are the 90-year-olds are going to be the ones that die. The prisoners are going to cost us a fortune if they get sick.
Well, it's not only that; it's that they're closed ecosystems. It's like the nursing homes, the meat packing plants, and the jails are close quarters, closed environments. And they don't have good air circulation in a jail. I don't know if you've ever been in a prison. There's nothing pleasant about it. But there's a lot of opportunity all day long to transfer it back to one person or another. And that's the same, thing that's happening in a nursing home. So if we're going to go based on how we're going to stop the most COVID, then certainly prisons should be near the top of the list. And I don't think police officers should be near the top of the list. I really don't think they come into contact with COVID, and, heck, they're hardly going to work now. So, but I think prisons and firefighters and, people that work in EMS, that makes sense for them. What else is going on, Harry, on your end with this Operation Warp Speed? I mean, do you know the guy, the general who's supposed to be running this?
No, I don't. And he is a professional logistics guy. That's where he came from. He pushes supplies around and gets things around. And I'm a little bit more forgiving than Ed is on that. I don't know if the jury's in on exactly what happened. What I do admire is that he accepted responsibility for it immediately. Yeah. And they seem to be working around it.
It's turned into a status symbol now to get your vaccine before everybody else does. The real issues are going to be playing out here is, you're going to find out what your social worth is, because where are you in line right now? And you're going to be seeing a lot of people, saying, I'm important. Well, I'm important too. And it's going to be very difficult to tell one group they can't have it and one not. And in fact, I expect there to be major fights politically, and in fact, probably a lot of lawsuits from that standpoint also, with people that are pushed to the back of the line for whatever reason. The thing is that this is also going to be impacting the campaigns, especially when we go down into Georgia, because there you've got a state that's 40% black. There been a group that has been horribly impacted by COVID. I mean, the summary is that it's been quickly realized that this vaccine works, it's safe, doesn't have any side effects, and it prevents some awful side effects. So looking at that and all of a sudden realizing that, hey, some of those side effects are worse than almost dying. If I've got money or power, I'm going to do whatever I can to get that vaccine as fast as I can. So, it's like, when the Titanic was sinking, some people were gentlemanly and put the women and children on first. And then you had the ones that, grabbed a kid to go to the front of the line to get on the boat. And that's what you're seeing right now. You're literally seeing.
And that was the top deckers. It wasn't the people at the bottom.
Yeah, it was the top deckers. And so, it was the
Come here,
steerage
kid.
passage.
So when Kelly Ward, the head of the Arizona GOP, lines up, because she's a first responder, right? She's a physician, first line worker, to get her shot, I guess we'll know that truly has held true.
Yeah, and the thing is she hasn't put anything out that's what she's going to do. But, if she's going to be consistent and true to her faith, they should be rejecting getting shots at all costs. Now, and I've met people that they say they will not take the vaccine under any circumstances. There's nothing that you can tell them that will make them change their mind. So,
well, half the vaccines are made by Pfizer,
right?
Who make Viagra. And I trust them with my penis, so why wouldn't I trust them with an inoculation? They know how to inject.
Okay, I think we've beaten that one to death.
Yeah.
Not yet, but the night is still young.
Enough. So, let's talk about the Russians. The Russians, I mean, it seems like the Russians have more information from our top secret government than any of us have. And is there anything they don't know?
Yeah, I think there is actually a lot they don't know. I've not seen anything that has led me to believe that they tapped into our actual classified networks. Now, if they did, we might not be saying that, but it's hard to keep a story like that quiet. But I do know that those classified networks are, let's just say they're very difficult to make the gap between the internet and to our classified networks. It would be levels above what I think they did here. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that this wasn't dangerous. Most of the conversations that we have on the internet, even behind various, Microsoft level walls, security walls, are still pretty hefty as far as what we say. You can get a lot of information just by hearing people talk in the unclassified environment. And again, I can't give away too much. I don't want to downplay the significance of this breach, but I can say that from everything that I've seen, not only were Department of Defense networks kept out of it because they're very heavily secured, but the secret networks of the Department of Defense and the other agencies, I do not think were breached. We may find out later they were, but right now...
You can't know because they lie about it.
Well, they typically
You know.
don't lie about it, but they won't tell you about it. But no, again, just from what I know about how they work, and I was in that world, I spent
Yes.
a lot of time
And I trust you.
in windowless buildings behind
Right.
barriers of stuff. I think it would be very difficult for them to have done that, gotten to our classified networks.
And you know, I mean, you've heard me talk about Reality Winner on this show before, and I go back to that experience. She is in jail. Reality Winner is still in jail. And her crime was telling us that 26 of our states had their election systems hacked. And we didn't hear that from our government. Our government didn't tell its citizens that there were problems with the election. They didn't tell the people in local communities. A lot of these state people didn't even know that they got hacked until Reality Winner showed up.
That's the whole argument about, pardon Edward Snowden, because
Yeah,
a
except
lot of this
he's
stuff,
different. He's a spy. He took a lot of shit and gave it to the Chinese and gave it to the Russians. All she did was tell us that our election got hacked. So
I agree with Jimmy to a point. There were other ways for Reality Winner to have gotten that message out, and she chose probably the least effective one and the one who got her in the most trouble, obviously. But yeah, I think overall she did us all a favor by getting that information out there. It just was done in an incorrect way that probably spilled more good stuff than it was meant to.
all she said was 26 states got hacked. She released one document. There wasn't much to it. Anyway, that's a different story. I think that when Biden comes in, he should pardon her. I think she's a hero, and I think she's deserving of a pardon. And I know everybody around this table might not agree, but then I go back to the experience I had there. First, we didn't know because our government kept it a secret from us that our votes were hacked. I don't think they have the right to do that. I don't think they have the right to classify that. I don't give a shit what their reason is. And then we learned that 26 states were hacked, and over half of them learned that they were hacked by hearing the news. And then they all immediately came out and said, well, we don't think they broke into anything. We don't think they changed any votes. But by then they had not looked. So this is what I call, classification because it's embarrassing. And I don't know that that's not what's going on here. I mean, I trust you, Harry. But it's exactly the same.
I'm not going to claim that I have any special knowledge other than I've just been around that world a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this that any other newsreader knows. I don't, because I'm separated from that world now.
But,
Right.
that's it. We've all been around long enough to know that you can shade information. I mean, doctors do it all the time talking to patients. It's like, you come in and you can either be very blunt, you're going to be dead in 2 weeks, or, it's like, you should withdraw all your money and enjoy it. So, it just depends on how you want to tell the story. And, you can hold stuff back, too. So it's like, it's human nature to do that, to cover your screw-ups.
Well, I just to go into Reality Winner, for instance, the way she revealed that information gave a lot of information to the guys who broke into the system about what we knew about it, how we found out about it, and it probably helped them a lot in formulating this next attack that they have just been caught in doing. So there are ways to get your information out, the word out about what has happened, without doing it the way she did. And so it caused problems that we will probably not ever know, or at least not know for the next 20 some odd years until they're declassified and come out. And I would say the same thing about this one. Yes, there is a lot of stuff we will not know anytime soon about the depth and breadth of this attack. But having said that, I think it would be tougher than it already was, for them to have gotten into the real classified systems. I mean, there's no direct route from the internet to those without some significant engineering. I mean, physical engineering.
They're physically separated from the internet.
I'm just going to say that it would be really tough to make the atoms jump or the electrons jump from one to the other.
Well, that's nice. And I can actually see in this case how there might be more reason to keep things a secret than in the case of the election hacking. But there was no way that we should not have been, as citizens of this country, not have been informed that our most sacred thing, our voting system, was hacked into. And
I don't disagree with that. I just think that the way she went about it, without going through some filters to filter out the things we didn't want them to know, operational security reasons, would have been a better way. And she could have done that by retaining a lawyer, frankly.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
You know, I don't think we ever would have heard if she retained a lawyer.
Maybe.
I don't think we ever would have
can't know
heard
that.
that she was in jail if she retained a lawyer.
I disagree with that. I know a
okay.
very good lawyer here in town that saved my ass, and so there are those out there who do that and who will do it,
Yeah.
if not pro bono, at least work with the not-for-profits who can help pay the bills.
Well, I just know reality's mom, so I
Okay.
don't have access to the high-powered people who will keep secrets for you and not get you put in jail. But the whole thing stinks. This whole reality winner thing stinks, and the amount of trouble that the Russians can cause for us all stinks, and the fact that it's not being considered an act of war stinks.
Oh, I'm glad
most
you
of
brought
all.
that up. I mean, because as far as I'm concerned, as soon as Biden takes over, there needs to be about a half a dozen Russian submarines that just mysteriously disappear.
Well, I'm not going to go with the measures on that because it has to be. You got lawyers jumping in on that one. However,
Yeah.
it is an act of war. We do call it cyber warfare, and I think more likely what you're going to see is that troll farms are just going to end up looking like a room full of bricks.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they're going to brick their computers. You know?
Oh, okay. Well, that won't be enough. That will not be sufficient.
No, there will be other things going. I'm not, and again, I don't want to get involved in what the details will be or our
Right.
capabilities. But we can take these things offline. There are just as much as they know about us. I guarantee you, we know about them. This is
Well,
not
I
a one-way
suspect
game.
so.
Yeah.
They don't know we hacked into their systems. You know, their public doesn't know that they know everything they want to know.
No,
I mean, I think they're beating the crap out of us here.
well, I
And
think
they
that-
certainly aren't. We can't change votes to unelect Vladimir Putin.
Okay,
So,
so let's look at this back in the day, like when Jean Le Carré was writing at his height.
Uh-huh.
And there are games within games within games, and that is the new spy game right now. Yeah, we still have guys out on the street in trench coats, asking questions with people and trying to recruit spies. But the reality is most of the information that any of us, certainly anybody in the industrial world, is storing and communicating with is on computer systems, and that is why these things are happening, because that is the new way to get into the mindset of your adversary. And not only get into the mindset of your adversary, but then influence it with false information. Mm-hmm. We've seen that in our own society over the last 4 years. But imagine that on the micro level inside your computer systems, where day is indeed night and otherwise. This is a fascinating world, and
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you, as a guy who recruits for companies that do this, that work into the cyber world and cybersecurity with the highest levels of clearances. Yeah, this is where the money is going in the defense and intelligence world right now. This is where everybody in the Beltway and those Beltway bandits are investing, is into cybersecurity.
Yeah, but I want retaliation.
I think you're going to see retaliation.
I don't want we're getting better at keeping secrets so they can't steal them anymore. I want them to pay for what they did. And I want
think
them to
you're
pay. I want to freeze all their bank accounts that are in the United States. I want us to refuse to do business with anybody that's doing business with them. I think we need to take dramatic steps to stop this warlike behavior. And if we don't, we're just fighting a one-sided war.
I agree with you. I think we will, but I absolutely agree with you.
We won't in the Trump administration, that's clear.
Not for the next 30
days. He won't
days.
even admit that it happened. But hopefully Joe Biden, who knows his way around this stuff, will pretty quickly put something together that will, we can effectively stop these things by the amount of cost that we attach.
Well,
to
I mean, that brings up an interesting speculation then. If it turns out that Trump was actively intervening to keep the Russians off the hook because he's compromised because of what all he owes to VTF Bank that Deutsche Bank is running interference for. How do you think the public's going to react to that? I mean, I know how we'll react, but I mean, does that get across? Is that a line too far even for the Trumpsters?
Well, let me put it this way. All of his court cases, a man summed them up for me the other day. And he said, well, all of these cases are getting thrown out on technicalities. And if we were just given a chance to present our evidence, we could prove there was massive fraud in the election. So at least half the people in the country are going to think that.
There was a great article today. I believe it. I can't remember where it came out. I'll post it on our page. that basically says, it's not worth talking to these people anymore. They live
Right.
in an alternate reality. It doesn't matter what you say. The more you tell them they're stupid or they're wrong, the more you just confirm that they're in the right, in their own heads. They're in the right, and they're not going to change from that. So the conversation is not worth having. It only reinforces their prejudices.
Yeah, I passed one today at Tatum and Shea. I mean, there's this guy that sits out on the corner literally every afternoon for about 3 or 4 hours holding up his Trump flag. Now he's got a bullhorn. Now I was driving by, I had forgot to take my mask off for BOR. I'm in my truck by myself. So, but I mean, I'm at the stoplight and he's literally, take your mask off. It's a sign of oppression.
Oh, jeez.
And unfortunately,
Yeah, and I understand Van Morrison and
yeah.
Eric Clapton just came out with an anti-mask song. I mean, it has nothing to do with how much education you have. It has nothing to do with
that's why our parents didn't like them.
how smart you are. It does attract a stupid group, but the fact is, these people, and here's the bottom line on conspiracy theories. People invent conspiracy theories because they can't deal with uncertainty. And if the world seems uncertain to them, they'd much rather have it be a vast conspiracy than they just have to wait till tomorrow to see what happens. And I don't see anybody moving them. So
No.
I totally agree with the idea. We just need to write them off, beat them, and beat them some more until they get tired of losing. And that's how we solve this problem.
Well, that goes right into our next subject, I think, the dissolution, the disintegration of the GOP.
Nice segue.
I mean, yeah, really, well done. $20 to you, Jim.
Thank you.
I mean,
From each of you.
Yeah.
You look at me
now
and
we're
Ed,
going that way. Huh?
and we spun off of these guys, 5 years ago, whatever, a while ago before this all happened, because we could see the wheels starting to come apart. It was intellectually, morally, ethically unsustainable anymore.
Right.
And now you've got the guys more like me and Ed. I think they're starting to call them red dogs. Think about that. These red dog Democrats who
I'll take that name. I would take that name if I were you.
I'm perfectly happy with that idea. And again, that's another article I'll post after we get the video up. But these are people who basically believe in everything that the Democratic Party has, except for maybe a few points. They're not maybe as enthusiastic about some of the more progressive things, but they're not going to fight you on it.
Right.
And these need to be welcomed into our party because they got nowhere else to go. And
Well,
they
not
can
only
provide
that,
strength.
they vote.
And they vote.
If all they
Absolutely,
do is vote.
Well,
for a
one of the things
Democrat, they're
I'm
worth
picking
it to
up
us.
from the progressive side is we welcome your votes. Just don't try to get in and give us, try to tell us what to do. We're in charge here. We're the ones that draw up the litmus test and tell you where the lines are.
And that's true. I mean, I had to fight my way into the Democratic Party and fight my way into the primaries
Right.
Against those prejudices.
But we have to be more careful about how we talk about progressives because that's a segment of progressives. Those are the Bernie Sanders progressives that want to burn down the house and then blame us for lighting the fire. There are a whole probably bigger group of progressives who are practical progressives. They want to do those things, but they don't want to hate everybody. They don't want to live in a state of constant failure. So really, when we say progressives, there are two different groups that fall into progressives. And either one of them is probably 5% of the electorate, 10% or 15% combined.
Well, I mean, I put myself in that the moderate progressive group because I would love to see the Green New Deal come in. I think it would create tens of millions of jobs. It would increase your tax base tremendously.
Right.
The whole idea of putting a carbon tax out just levels the playing field for different forms of energy. It's like I want to stop subsidizing energy at any level. So if solar power is better, we go that way. Wind power is better, we go that way. And if it comes back to it and we need it and we need to go back to coal for some reason in the future, I can't imagine what that'd be, but we're not going to hamstring ourselves that you can't do it, but you have to pay the costs that come with mining it, returning the land, getting rid of the toxins and the stuff afterwards. And right now, that's something that if you're using fossil fuels, you're not paying the disposal costs downstream.
Right. Well, they knocked down the smokestacks at Navajo Generating Station this week, and they announced another closure of a plant in Maryland, coal plant. And we're really making progress on that. But it seems like to me, after hearing you talking, I want the Republican Party to discriminate, to fall apart faster. So how do we make that happen? I mean, it seems like it's a ripe time for picking them off.
Well, I think we give them a home. We give those reasonable Republicans, those ones who are completely turned off, who recognize that their party has been hijacked by a bunch of idiots and ideologues. We give them a place to go and not try to shun them. The second best bet is, okay, well, those who we don't want in the party, those who we don't accept because they're still just a little bit too far to the right of Genghis Khan, okay, then you guys form two parties and you fight amongst yourselves, and we'll just continue driving
Which
on
is
with
exactly
primaries.
what's happening. I mean, it's like now in Arizona, we've got 2, maybe 3 parties forming right now. We've got the Patriot Party. There's now a fight for who's going to control the GOP between the Kelly Ward, QAnon faction and, the establishment people still in it. And, that's going to be a huge fight because whoever, wins gets to keep all the donor lists and, the machinery of the party. So, it's not going to be a minor fight. And right now, the QAnon people, have all the posts and they've got the votes to keep it. So, I look at it as it's almost like a religious thing. And when you are in an evangelical religion, which is what I grew up in the South, there's something called witness and testimony. And I think what you do is you go out and tell your story. I mean, I tell my story all the time that I was at the 2014 Republican State Convention in Arizona. And that was so shocking that, I came home and dropped my Republican affiliation. And you start really looking at what's going on, but you tell them that, I came to the same decision. I understand how hard it is, to switch parties. I mean, in some ways, it's almost like, taking on a new religion. You're going to leave
Sure.
the Catholic Church, and you're going to
Especially if you're from the South.
I'll double on that.
You'd be totally shunned.
Yeah, I double on that. And it took me a long time because I went from Republican to independent to Democrat. It took me a long time to embrace the Democrat label. I had to because I wanted to run in a race, and that was just the way the law goes in Arizona. You got to pick a party or you're not going to win anything. But yeah, it took me a while to be comfortable in calling myself and labeling myself a Democrat because it is like a religion, truly. And if it's lifelong, like it was for me and Ed, it's a big move. It really is.
Well, we're happy to have you, but I have a question. Here's what I'm wondering about. By welcoming these people into the Democratic Party, are we in fact stopping the schism that's happening in the Republican Party? Are we making it easier for them to form back into one party? And should we maybe be rejecting these people so they'll start fighting or keep fighting with the other side?
No, I mean, I disagree with that because the people that are still there were people like me, but, for whatever reason, they just haven't made that jump. And so what's going to happen is the schism is that people that, I hear this all the time, I agree with all the Democrat social policies, but I'm a fiscal conservative, and it's like I'm now as a new minted Democrat. Well, what does that mean to be a fiscal conservative? Because if you agree with all the social parties or the positions, you got to fund them somehow.
Right.
It's like, the money does not grow on trees. Roads don't build themselves. And it comes down to who you're going to tax to do this. How are you going to get the money? It's like, we've had this 50-year experiment in trickle-down economics, which is just, we've gone back to the Gilded Age again. We've got trillionaires now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Thanks, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and I was a Ronald Reagan Republican. I believed in that shit. So, but I'm going to agree with Ed, but I'm going to give you a different perspective, and that is that, okay, yes, it's true. If we do accept the Red Dog Democrats into our party and give them a voice and help and their votes, we are in fact not helping with the schism, but we are making a much reduced in size and potency Republican Party. They're boiling themselves down into the MAGA Party, and
Yes.
and those are the ones we just talked about shunning and just doing away with, driving past, and not ignoring.
Right.
And I think it's easier to do that when you collect the ones of their party who don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, what I'm seeing here is that you're, like you said, you're distilling it down into this toxic stew of QAnon fanatics, and strangely enough, the really rich Republicans that that are so wedded to the party structure, for maintaining their wealth. And I think that if there's going to be a new party formed, it's going to be those rich, 1% Republicans coming out and trying to form something. And so I think you're going to see 2 or 3 splinter groups come out. There's going to be the Republican / QAnon Trump party, and then for the people that's too far left wing, there's going to be 2 or 3 other parties for the people that are even farther to the right. Mm-hmm. And so, so for the people elsewhere, you welcome them in. Tell them, come in, take a seat, listen for a while. We know it's going to be new. This is a new religion. We've got, different tenets than you've been used to hearing all your life. But ultimately, you don't want to, sow the seeds of a schism in the Democratic Party. And you're seeing the same thing here with, the Bernie AOC progressive wing and, the establishment Democrats.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If the Republican Party does split into 2 or 3 parties, we can expect the Sanders people to form their own even more impotent party. And, maybe we can weather that.
Well, let's think about it. Are there more Sanders people or further to the left of them than there are the red dogs who might come into our party? I mean, if we lose 5% but gain 10, I'm good with that. It's a good equation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the numbers. The other thing, though, that you have to put up with if you add a lot of conservatives to the party is more conservative power in the party. And how it will play out is exactly what Ed was talking about. Oh, I believe in all these things, but I just don't want to pay for any of them. Philosophically, I think these ideas are terrific, but they shouldn't cost me money.
I think we have to accept that evolution is a part of the political process. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at where we've come in not even 100 years, with the Democratic Party being at one point the party of the KKK and racism, to where we are now, which is the exact opposite, and the Republicans doing the same damn thing. That's just how it's going to go.
Well, the thing is, I think your warning is to look at what's happening in Israel right now, which is, they don't have the same system we have. You can have lots of parties. You can form a party at a moment's notice and become very powerful overnight. And they have been at a political stalemate now, and they just dissolved their government today, for the 4th time in less than 2 years. And I mean, they literally have electoral chaos right now.
And let's look at some of the seeds of that without going into this forever. But 30 years ago, they accepted a bunch of refugees from the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, who came in with their own ideas that were completely different, and their own reactionary ideas, which were completely different. And that has warped their politics. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, although we can certainly look and disagree with their policies and say a lot of it's immoral.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Different story. But
Yes.
that's how politics works. It's of the people. And if you get more people in of one stripe, it's going to change a little bit.
Well, I guess we're going to see what happens, because it's happening right before our eyes. When the maggots came to D.C. this last time, they were chanting, "Destroy the GOP."
So on the 6th of January, supposedly, I haven't seen a schedule yet, but according to Trump, if you come downtown and protest, it's going to be wild, quote. So I am ready to go downtown on the 6th of January with my secret weapon, my concealed weapon, the Vuvuzela.
Which we both have, by the way.
Yeah, but mine's blue.
Oh, very appropriate.
So, no, but there's been a lot of fear over the past 72 hours because Trump had this meeting with that crazy-ass attorney.
And Michael Flynn.
And Michael Flynn. And they all came together and said, we ought to do various things to include declaring some sort of brand of martial law and taking over the voting machines and everything. Let me talk about one aspect of that, and then we can talk about Flynn. And that is that here's how martial law works. Doesn't matter what the Pentagon folks say. If Trump gives the order, it then has to go to the Secretary of Defense. If the Secretary of Defense gives the order, it then goes to the combatant commanders. Now, at any level, there are going to be a lot of attorneys saying that's a legal order, that's a legal order, that's a legal order. If this order for martial law went to the Northern Command commander, the Army guy who's in charge of the entire North America, there's a 99.9% chance he's going to say no, because it's an illegal order. And I can tell you, as a guy who has refused a legal order and paid the price for it, it is a far better price to pay than going to jail, having your name dragged through the mud, losing everything that you ever stood for. I got to say, as a soldier, as a former soldier for life, I think that it's. I'm very proud of our military service right now, because they are just not having it. And good news story today, again, something I'll post somewhere later in the week, taken from sources inside the Pentagon and inside the combatant commands, inside Northern Command, where they're basically saying the Army soldiers and the senior civilians are just hiding out and waiting the next 30 days, making themselves unavailable because they just are not going to go to war against their own people.
Oh, that's good. So hopefully they didn't cheat like the 70 cadets did this past week. So that's the point.
Some of those cadets are already gone home, and some of them are going to go home. So, I mean, we catch it.
I think that's a good high note. The idea that the military will not assist Trump in his coup. Now, we still have the Border Patrol to worry about, who I've always said would be Trump's shock troops, and they could cause a lot of kerfluffle. But ultimately, this election is over. Joe Biden's going to be the president. The three of us are going to celebrate that, and all of our listeners, I assume, are going to celebrate that. And there's nothing, any of them, Donald Trump, Michael Flynn, Kelly Ward, any of these other jerkwads, of which there seem to be a lot of them around the country, there's nothing they can do to stop it. And that's why they're flailing around and blaming each other. Yeah.
They're staking out their positions right now for the post-Trump political world. And those who are, marching this march are just leg humping. They're just doing, public obeisance to Trump to see if they can get ahead in the next primary.
Well, that, and you're also starting to see the first, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry to the United States. I've seen a couple of those here in the last couple of days. It's
empty.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, it'd be interesting to say what working for Trump does to employability. We already know what
it's called the Trump taint.
Right.
My son-in-law does a lot what Mike does for a company called Corn Ferry, and that is a very real thing. Yeah, there's a lot of people that it's like, if you were a major player in the Trump organization, don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. So if you're a Trumper who's looking for a job, let me remind you of something else that you already know. You can't get a date either.
Although Stephen Miller did get married and reproduce, so
to one of his own kind.
Yeah.
They're all having to be inbred about it. Anyway, that's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you'll come back and see us. We hope you'll subscribe on YouTube. And brothers, it's been beautiful. See you soon. Bye-bye.